What's up my loves, my name is Paige, this is Paige with the Page, and today we're going to be doing my June wrap up. So June, BoxOfficeAthon ran throughout the month of June, and so every Sunday Antonisha Lachey from Mrs. Moody Reader would do the roll drops, and so we could then go and pick out books. There's been quite a lot of chaos that happened, but it was definitely a lot of fun, and I am so pleased with everything that I read. Alrighty, so I did the easy mode, so I essentially just picked and choose what I wanted. Let's dive into the stats. I read 14 books in the month of June, and that equated to 4,458 pages, which roughly works out to be 149 pages per day, which in my general rating scheme, that seems to be pretty average. My pages per book was 318 pages. My average star rating was a 4.1, and in terms of genres, I am shook. So I read 2 contemporary, 2 classics, 9 fantasy, and a sci-fi. So definitely a fantasy heavy month, but I'm not mad about it. In terms of format, I read 9, my favorite way of listening to the audiobook whilst reading along physically. I read 3 physically with no audiobook, and I read 2 ebooks. In terms of age range, I read 3 adult, 3 new adult, 6 YA, and 2 middle grade. In terms of ratings, I gave 2 5 stars, 2 4.5 stars, 7 4 stars, and 3 3.5, although one's teetering on like a 3-star, but that's fine. I read 3 standalones and 11 that contribute to series, which is great, except I started 7 new series. That is not the goal. The goal is to continue. Yeah, so I continued with 4 series, but I did start a few, but that's okay. That's okay. My biggest book was my big book jar, and that was the Iliad, and then my smallest was the Pale Dreamer. My listening hours was about 38.4 hours as well. Let's dive into the books themselves. The first book that I finished was Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. This is the second in the Red Rising series, and I gave this a 3.5. I really am liking the direction it's going, just the protagonist Arrow really annoys the shit out of me, so it's a little bit harder for me to get through than just something that I enjoy overall. This was working for BoxOfficeAthon for the first prompt of a medium-paced book that is a sci-fi. This does close at a fast pace, but on Storygraph it did it as medium, so I'm gonna count it because this was a continue. I did a continue on the series. I'm so proud. Next up was to read a classic in the form of an ebook, but because I was doing it the easy way, I just read the classic, and that was the first book, The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum, and that is The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. This is a bind-up of 3, and I'm actually really keen to keep going with these. I would like Ash to get me the entire bind-up set, just because I think it's really interesting, and I gave this a 4 stars. It went in the direction of the movie, but it also did things that I wasn't expecting. It's a little bit darker than what I was anticipating, and since we were doing the BoxOfficeAthon sprints well, it was 8 AM till 2 PM my time on Sunday, I started this in the morning, and it got to quite a gruesome bit, and I was like, I am not awake enough for this. But yeah, really enjoyed it, following Dorothy as she travels through the land of Oz, and I just thought it was really well done. Next up, I read The Pale Dreamer by Samantha Shannon. This is the novella prequel to The Bone Season, as The Bone Season was on my TBR, and April suggested that I read this first to have some sort of context before going into it. I would highly recommend it. I gave it a 3.5, but that's more me and like little snippets. I don't really feel like you can get much without tying it to the story. It enhanced the Bone Season experience for me, but in and of itself, it was a 3.5. It definitely made me very curious about what was going down in the story for the Bone Season, and being introduced to the backstories of the different characters was a really nice refresher, because it's not something that is delved deep into for the Bone Season, because it's going in a different direction for the plot. So yeah, I definitely would recommend reading it before reading the Bone Season if you want to, or after, so you've got some idea of who the characters are and or their backstory, but I'm definitely very curious to continue on with the series. But again, starting another series. Next up, it's become my favorite book of this fucking year, and that is Malice by Heather Walter. Holy fucking shit. I know I mentioned this in a video recently. What did I mention it in? my 7 on Sunday favourite books of the first half of the year, because okay, not everyone's gonna like this. They're gonna think it's trash, and I'm perfectly okay with that, because to me this hit everything that I wanted. It's a sapphic villain origin story following Maleficent, or a Maleficent-like character. She's not actually the one that curses Aurora, but it plays a role in it. And the way that Heather has tweaked this retelling is fan-fucking-tastic. There are scenes in here that I audibly eeped over. The protagonists are just so marvelous. The descriptions are amazing. I have quotes that take up half a fucking page because I adored all of this. Essentially, the way that it works is the royal family has been cursed, so that the females need to break their curse with true love's kiss by the age of 16 or they will die, and Aurora's running out of time. She's kissed many a man and just no one's broken the curse. Malice is a nickname for our protagonist Alice, who works with dark magic. She has these powers which can turn things ugly, whereas her counterpart, beautiful people, are known as the Graces, and they can make things beautiful and go that way. So there is a lot of animosity between the Graces and Alice. The town itself are vile against her, even though they're the ones that come crawling to her when they need these things. And it just, the characterization is so well done. The story itself, fantastic. I really think that it took a known story and twisted it well, whilst returning to the roots as well. So it just, fucking please go pick this up. I've been screaming about it. I have gifted one to Antonisha Lachey, who's Mrs. Moody reader, and she seems to be really enjoying it so far, so I hope she finishes it off this month. I've also convinced my friend in real life to pick it up while we were in the bookstore. So yeah, just if you pick this up, please scream about it with me, and if you don't like it, I totally respect that. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but it is my perfect cup of tea. So I'm just gonna sit over here screaming about it for a little bit longer because I loved it so much. Then, the Iliad by Homer. I'm not smart enough for this. This was for recommended read. It was my big book jar for Twister, and I listened to it going to bed every night. I don't know what the fuck I read. I am definitely not a classicist. I was not giving it the attention that it deserved. I just let it lull me like a bedtime story, and I'm okay with that. I'm not gonna reread it. The things that I know and the things I remember are what I've picked up from just general knowledge, although I do feel like I have a better understanding of those retellings and things like that because I can see how it was all drawn together. Names fuck me the fuck up. Like, I am shit at any name, and then you're throwing at least 30 different names in a single book, which is a chapter, and I'm just lost. What I really enjoyed was, and I knew this was part of it, but actually seeing how the gods like interfered with the different players in it and their actual influences, that was great. Seeing the source material and how they interacted just was glorious. So I enjoyed that. I would recommend it if you want to read it. Just give it its time and try not like fit it into a month, because that's not going to happen, and I ended up reading it in 13 days. So yeah, but it's a good bedtime story as well, so if you want to go that way, like, feel free. Then we took a bit of a turn. This was for Books and Lala's BoxOfficeAthon having a name in the title, and so I read Alice by Christina Henry. I need to read the next ones. This was excellently trigger warnings for attempted rape, murder, child prostitution, off-page, rape and cannibalism, body mutilation. And when I say rape and cannibalism, I mean he's eating them while he's raping them. Like, it's fucking intense. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. Fucking just be careful. I am a scaredy fucking pants, but Trigger warnings I'm pretty okay with. Nothing's really ever set me off spiraling aside from My Dark Vanessa, but that just hit, that was like my experience, so like, no. So this, because it was fantastical, I didn't really, it unnerved me and it did its purpose, but it didn't trigger me to harm my mental health in any way, shape or form in that sort of perspective. But fuck, this was great. So I gave it a 4 stars. Alice is a really wonderful character. I loved seeing, so in our originals, Alice has lost her spark, like she's just forgotten her way. With this, that twist was really excellently done. There were characters like the Walrus and the Carpenter, the Cheshire Cat, the Rabbit, obviously, and the Mad Hatter. But they were all done so well, and it sort of gave me Desperate Measures by Katie Roberts vibes, but gruesome. Like, hardcore. If there was no smut in Katie Roberts and she wanted to go down a dark and twisty turn, this would be that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. The only thing, there was a hint of a romance in it and I didn't vibe it. So yeah, but what can you do? I think it would have worked well without having that budding romance, because for me it wasn't like the right dynamic to be doing it. But each to their own, and yeah, I still really enjoyed it. So if you're able to deal with trigger warnings in a plethora of it, and it's just one after the other, there is very little break of fucking actual happiness in this, I'd highly recommend checking it out. Then we got to the bone season. As you can see, I still have my Twister prompt, which was audio. So I did listen to this on Audible and read along. This is the first book in the Bone Season series by Samantha Shannon, with The Pale Dreamer being the novella before it. This is following Paige, and thinking back on this, combining this with The Pale Dreamer, it's like, damn, they are 2 fucking different books. You're sort of, Paige is working in London for this guy, which we all know about we see her induction in The Pale Dreamer. Then for this, it's following her along and her power that she was tentative with just sort of comes to fruition, and then shit goes down, like a whole ton of fucking shit. And I really liked it. I gave it a 4 stars as well. I think having that backstory really enhanced it for me. The story itself does go in a very different direction. We're not really following her in her group. It sort of veers off into another way, but it was excellently done. I really love Samantha Shannon's writing. I have only read Priory of the Orange Tree before starting this, but I'm definitely keen to keep going on. It is set in a futuristic world, very much us versus them vibes, which I adore. And yeah, I just thought it was really nice. I'm also completing my Read My Rainbow, Film My Red. So yeah, many excited. I can see all the hype, and if you want to pick it up, go for it, because I feel like this story is going to go in so many different directions that I'm not prepared for, but I'm excited for. Ironheart by Nina Varela. So, I loved this. I should have read it before Malice. No fault of the book, but seeing the characters, I wanted more from them. The bits that I loved was with Krya and Ayla. They're sort of the slow build of their chemistry and getting to see them just work towards one another into a particular goal. With this, they spend a lot of the book separated, so there wasn't that sort of connection. And then when they do get back together, there was a lot of, oh, I should tell her, oh, but I'm a coward, oh, but we should, but oh, I'm a coward. And so it just didn't have that same sort of vibe. Absolutely adored it. 4.5, but I just couldn't give it the same amount of love as Krya's, because it just went in a way that wasn't the vibes that we had set up for. I get that the plot is going a lot twistier, a lot darker, they have a lot to do, they're constantly on the go, there is higher risks, which I really enjoyed, and I loved where the story went. It was just, my love for Krya's was the characters, and the characters still felt like themselves, but they didn't go as far as I wanted it to. And I think because it went as far as I wanted it to in Malice, reading this then just sort of didn't quite hit the mark. So I still highly, highly, highly recommend this duology. It's one of my favorites. I fucking brilliant writing, marvelous characters. Just make sure you read this before Malice. But I pine for more with these characters. I honestly just would read any short stories that came out with them just doing their day-to-day lives. I want more. And I don't want it to be the end. I don't feel like it could be the end, but apparently it is. So we will see. But I need more with this because I just adore them so much. So yeah, highly recommend, my loves. And then, to no one's surprise, I gave 5 stars with The Fire and High by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is amazing. I was not prepared for the amount of beauty that this is. You know, it's Elizabeth Acevedo. It's gonna be good. I've read Clap Whitney Land. I've read The Poet X. I've now read this. All of them 5 stars. The story, the messages, the writing itself, the characters, everything about this is just fantastic. Moody is a teen mum and she's trying to still get through high school, juggling classes, homework, being a mum, wanting to have a social life and just all of those commitments, and still earn enough money to go on a trip to Spain for a cooking class and deciding where she wants to go in life. I think the power of this is fantastic. It shows the strengths of single mums and teen mums. It shows how amazing and complicated it is, and in a way that is not derogatory, that points out how people immediately look at her and are concerned because she has a child and they're like, oh, radio. But she is an amazing individual that absolutely works wonders in the kitchen, is such a brilliant and marvelous friend, is so kind and caring for all of those around her, and yet people are immediately scoffed because she's a teen mom. I think it speaks volumes. I absolutely loved the feelings that this gave me. Again, similar to, what was it, Get a Life, Chloe Brown? It sort of just felt like being wrapped in a warm blanket, given amazing fucking good food that I want so badly, and just, you're along for the ride. You're rooting for Moody the entire way, and it was just absolutely marvelous. So with that, I had completed my Twisted Tibia, and I completed that on the 25th. And so I went on a little bit of a reading spree. I finally got to some novellas that I was interested in, and yeah. So, these novellas, I was going around my library having a look at what was on my wish list and what they actually had, and there was quite a few, so I picked them up. And the first one I picked up was Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna Maguire. I gave this a 4.5 stars. I absolutely adored this setting. These characters were fantastic. I had no idea what I was getting in for because I just knew that everyone loves this. I didn't read any synopsis. I just knew that it was set at Eleanor West's home for wayward children, and it was following a asexual protagonist. Also, on page, was great. This was fantastic. And then it was a murder mystery. Somehow that had been skipped over. My entire hearing of this, I never once knew that someone died and they're trying to catch a killer. Like, that's the whole plot. I did not know this. Anyway, really enjoyed it. Not gonna say anything more because I feel like a lot of people already know. But yeah, I definitely love this. The representation, essentially the premise is that these kids have gone to portal worlds that are for them, and then they somehow or another get kicked back into our world and they're struggling to readjust, so they stay at Eleanor West's home for wayward children. I see why this is a favourite, and I'm definitely keen to get the rest of the series. Next up was one that I've seen around, and I didn't realise just how much I was going to enjoy this. I thought, it's a Western. I'm gonna tentatively just cool. Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey. This was bloody fantastic. I gave it a 4 stars. I really enjoyed the characters. Esther has seen her beloved beheaded by her now fiance, and so she sneaks away to go join the librarians, who essentially go around providing sanctioned material to different communities. However, they're lesbian librarians that are actually rogues, So they give the premise that they are perfect and that they're doing everything above the law, but really questionable. So I love this. I thought the representation was great. I felt so deeply for these characters in such a short 173 page novella. So just, it was brilliant. And I don't know why I slept on this for so long, because I know that it's like, it's librarians and lesbians. Why would I not be interested? I think just the whole premise of it being a Western really was like, okay. But I really enjoyed it. The setting worked perfectly, and it was more like a fantastical desert rather than an actual, like, felt like a Western. There was concerns of not having enough water and things like that, but I definitely didn't feel like it had all the Western vibes without feeling that dry, gross Western that I tend to not enjoy. So yeah, highly recommend this. A lot of fun, and just something a little bit different. Continuing on with series, I read A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J Maas, and I give this a 4 stars because it was absolutely fantastic. I loved it. I really enjoyed just following these characters around, going in knowing that it was like a Christmas novella of them just going around shopping and doing whatever. Going in knowing that it's them going around Christmas shopping, having sex, and just getting to be with these characters definitely helped me not be disappointed. I can understand why people were waiting for the next book, and then this is what she released, and not knowing that, thinking you're gonna get more in of the ACOTAR battles and things like that. I fully respect that is why people were disappointed, but go in knowing Christmas story with your faves, lot of banging, it's a good time. So yeah, definitely, like, I would recommend it going, you don't have to skip over it, just know that it is filler. It is for the fans, and I am okay with that. Then I read Bloom by Kevin and Savannah. This was a graphic novel. I read it online and it was really wholesome. Apparently though, it's the start of a series. The second one's not coming out till 2023. I adored these characters. I thought it was great. I gave it 4 stars because the vibe wasn't quite right. I felt like it's following Hector and Ari is really clingy, and then they hadn't like said that they liked each other or anything, and he's like, I'm gonna miss you, and then he moped the entire time that Hector was away, and he was like, why did you leave me? And I'm like, no, that's not healthy. So, and like Hector commented being on, and like he got really weird towards the end. It was really clingy, and I was like, so you see that this is wrong, but we're also not challenging it. So that was just one thing that lowered my rating, because I didn't feel like that was a good thing. Like, definitely when your partner goes, I miss you so much, baby, like, I'm gonna miss you, I'm gonna be sad because you're not around, but you're also an independent person who can make your own choices, and I respect this decision that you want to go back to your friends because you haven't seen them for ages. So would recommend if you want some wholesome, cute bakery cooking scenes. It was just a nice little fun read. And then finally, the 14th book that I read was Lightful by Tim Probert. And this is a 4-star read. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I can't deal with the Galjurin. He is just hilarious. I love him so much. They're just going on an adventure because B, her adoptive grandfather, the pig wizard, has gone missing, and she's really concerned because he's rather forgetful, and she's like, oh no, like, I need to go find him. And this is, again, the start of the series, but I'm so excited for the next ones to come out because it's just so beautiful. Also, I didn't know this going in, but the representation for anxiety and depression and being caught in a mind spiral, absolutely brilliantly done. Let me see if I can find, when our character starts to get nervous, they have these little black squiggles that sort of come in as she is ruminating and spiraling out, and then there's some tricks used at the end to sort of help alleviate that. And I think as a middle grade graphic novel, that is great representation, showing kids that it's okay to feel like this. as long as we can move past it in a healthy manner. And sometimes you're going to be stuck, and that's totally okay. Like, it's totally normal to just freeze up and not be able to do it. But when at times it calls for it, you are powerful enough to get through that. And yeah, I adore this, so I can't wait for the second one. I want to be friends with Bea and Gail. They are just so cute. So these are the books that I read in June, and this pile is surprisingly heavy. I am so proud of what I got read. Let me know in the comments, how did your June reading go? So did you participate in any readathons? How are you feeling towards July? I am pretty excited and also a little bit nervous because I have a vlog that I'm working on and it's intimidating. If you like this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more of this mess, feel free to subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you on my next video. Bye!